Hello sports fans, welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 1 college football rankings. So kicking things off at number 10, I've got Arizona State. So this is an Arizona State team that I like a lot entering this season, and I think they might be slightly underrated. They made it to the college football playoff last season, and they returned a ton of key pieces from last year's team. Quarterback Sam Leavitt is a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the country, plus receiver Jordan Tyson is very good. Now, the run game did lose Cam Scatabo, but Army transfer Kanye Udo they brought in, and I like him quite a bit. Then the defense for Arizona State, they were great last year, brought back a ton of key players, and I really think this defense is quite good. But I got Arizona State ranked at number 10 entering this season. Coming in at number 9, I've got LSU. So LSU, they come in at number 9. They went 9-4 last year, but this season I think they're very good. Quarterback Garrett Nussmeier had a very good year last year, throwing for 4,000 yards. He's back for another season, and I think he's one of the 3 best quarterbacks entering this season. Then around Garrett Nussmeier, they've got a great running back in Caden Durham, who had over 5 yards per carry last year, and LSU's leading receiver Aaron Anderson also returns. Then the defense for LSU I really like. Linebacker Whit Weeks is a preseason All-American and had 120 tackles last year, plus Harold Perkins is back from injury. And while he is coming off a very serious torn ACL, the last time he was healthy in 2022 and 2023, he was one of the best defensive players in college football. But this is an LSU team that I really like. They have a great offense and a great defense, and I've got LSU ranked 9th entering this season. Coming in at number 8, I've got Georgia. So Georgia comes in at number 8, and some people might think this is a little bit low for Georgia, but I actually thought about putting them even lower. Now, I don't think this Georgia team is as good as Georgia teams in the past have been. I definitely think they're still very good and very talented, but I just think there's too many questions for this Georgia team for me to rank them too high. Offensively, they turn it over to Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, and I don't think he's great right now. That could change, and he could be a top 5 quarterback by the end of the season, but right now, I don't think he's too great. The receivers for Georgia also aren't amazing. They're good, but not great, and the offensive line also has a lot to replace from last season. Really, the only thing that I really like about this Georgia offense is running back Nate Frazier, who had a very good year last year as a true freshman. Now, the defense for Georgia was good last year, not elite like they've been in previous years, plus they lost some key players from last year's defense. Now, I do still think this Georgia defense is good, I just don't think they're quite as good as they were last year. Now, I'm not trying to say this Georgia team is terrible and they're going to go win 5 games. I mean, even with all these questions Georgia has, I still have them as a preseason top 10 team, and I've got Georgia at number 8. 7th, I've got Oregon. So Oregon comes in at number 7, and last year they had a great year in their first year as a member of the Big Ten, actually winning the conference, but they lost a ton of key players from last year's team. Offensively, they hand Dante Moore the keys to the offense after he sat behind Dylan Gabriel last season, but around Dante Moore, there is some questions. The receiver position is talented but inexperienced, and the offensive line also lost 4 starters from last season. The good news for Oregon is the run game is very good, with Mekhi Hughes and Noah Winnington. Now, defensively for Oregon, they're quite good, especially up front, and this defense has a ton of potential. Now, this Oregon team entering this season might not be quite as good as they were last year, at least on paper, but this is an Oregon team I still think they're very good, and I've got them ranked number 7. 6, I've got Alabama. So Alabama had a down year last year, going 9-4 in their first season under Kalen DeBoer, and it was the first year they didn't win 10 games since 2007. But Kalen DeBoer now enters year 2 at Alabama, and I think this Alabama team is really good entering this season. Really, the one question I have about this Alabama team is quarterback Ty Simpson. He's going to start at quarterback, and I'm not his biggest fan. Now, he definitely has potential, and Alabama also hired Ryan Grubb as their offensive coordinator, and we've seen him have a ton of success with quarterbacks, and he's also had a ton of success when he's been with Kalen DeBoer. So the potential is definitely there for Ty Simpson, but at the moment, I'm not super high on him. Now, the rest of this Alabama team is really good. The run game is good with Jam Miller, receiver Ryan Williams is one of the best in the country, and the offensive line is elite. Then, on the defensive side of the ball, they were great last year, lost a couple key players to the NFL, but this defense is still really good. But this is an Alabama team that I really like entering this season. If I like their quarterback situation more, I'd probably have them inside the top 5, but I've got Alabama at number 6. 5th, I've got Ohio State. So the defending champs, they come in at number 5. they lost a ton of production from last year's team, as they had 14 players get picked in the NFL draft. But this Ohio State team is, I think, still one of the 5 best teams entering this season. Quarterback Julian Sayin is inexperienced with just 12 career pass attempts, but he is extremely talented. And they've got a lot of talent around him. They got a good duo in the backfield with C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples, although I do think that is definitely a significant step down from the duo of Travion Henderson and Quishon Judkins last season. Then at receiver for Ohio State, they obviously got Jeremiah Smith, who is arguably the best player in college football. And on the defensive side of the ball, they lost some key players, especially up front, but other key players like Caleb Downs returned, and Caleb Downs might be the best defensive player in college football. Now, the defense for Ohio State did lose defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who's now at Penn State, and they hired Matt Patricia as their defensive coordinator, so that could definitely be a step down, but I still think this defense is one of the top defenses in college football. In Ohio State, they definitely lost a lot, but they're back. They're still a very talented team entering this season, and I've got them at number 5. Fourth, I've got Notre Dame. So Notre Dame enters at number 4, and they're coming off a trip to the national championship game, and they're one of the best teams in college football once again. Offensively, they're led by a great run game with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, who I think are the best running back duo in college football. And now at the quarterback spot, C.J. Carr is very inexperienced, but he is extremely talented and has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Now, the defense for Notre Dame, they're elite. They do have a new defensive coordinator after Al Golden left for the NFL, but they hired Chris Ash as their DC, and this defense is still really good. They've got talent on all 3 levels, and I think something that really stands out about this defense is how deep they are. But this is a Notre Dame team that I think is really good. As a Notre Dame fan, I think I can make the argument to have them ranked number 1, but given the inexperienced quarterback and a new defensive coordinator, I do have them ranked number 4, but this Notre Dame team is really good. Third, I've got Penn State. So Penn State, they're at number 3. They made it to the semifinals of the college football playoff last season, and they returned almost all key contributors. Quarterback Drew Allar is back, and while I'm not the biggest fan of Drew Allar, I do think he's a pretty good quarterback. Running backs Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are also back, and they're to run behind a very experienced offensive line. Really, the only question for this Penn State offense is pass catchers, with newcomers at receiver and tight end. Then defensively, Penn State, they're great. They've got a ton of talent on all 3 levels of the defense, plus they hired Jim Knowles to be their defensive coordinator, who obviously won a national championship last year with Ohio State. But this Penn State team is really good, and they're my preseason number 3 team. Second, I've got Texas. So Texas, they enter at number 2. I know a lot of people have them ranked at number 1, and they're number 1 in the AP poll, but I've got Texas at number 2. Arch Manning takes over at quarterback, and while he hasn't played a ton, he's only started a couple of games, he has looked very good in his limited action. Plus, there's talent all around Arch Manning. Running back C.J. Baxter and Trey Wisner are a great duo, and receivers DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo also are very good. My only concern about this Texas offense is the offensive line, with several new starters. Then on the defensive side of the ball, I think this Texas defense is one of the best defenses in the country, if not the best. They return a ton of key players from last season. They got a great pass rush, linebacker Anthony Hill Jr. is elite, and safety Michael Taft was an All-American last year. But this Texas team is really good entering this season, and I've got them ranked number 2. And at number 1, I've got Clemson. So Clemson is my number 1 team entering this season, and this team is really good. Quarterback Cade Klubnik is the best quarterback in college football, and Clemson, they've also got one of the best receiver trios in the country, with Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, and Brian Wesco. Then you look to the defensive side of things for Clemson, they're elite. This front 7 is really good, especially on the defensive line, and the secondary is also one of the best in college football. But this is a Clemson team I really like. They have a ton of experience and talent all returning from last year's team, and I've got Clemson as my preseason number 1 team. But those are my preseason or week 1 college football rankings. I didn't go super in-depth to a lot of these teams, so if you want to see a more in-depth preview for all these teams, be sure to check out my college football predictions, where I also go over a lot more than just these 10 teams. I go over all Power 4 teams plus Notre Dame, so be sure to check that out. But those are my week 1 or preseason college football rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.